Now, when you check out TAPS or Sci-Fi, Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, you see a really cool show in about 1 hour. What you don't see is that actually to do that one investigation takes about 6 months, from the initial phone call to the time they're showing them what they found. Now, as my role in the team, I'm also the team medium. So I get an initial phone call, I pass it on to the case manager, which is Tiffany. She'll set up an interview, as well as doing preliminary research that we need done for the case. When we start to go out to a case, we try to keep an open mind and objective mind. Once we get to the case, to the home or business, whatever we're investigating, we'll go into Tiffany, we'll start doing a thorough interview with them, just going over basic information, finding some background on them. I'll take what's called a K2 meter or EMF detector for electromagnetic frequencies and check for any high energy fields in the area. Now, electromagnetic frequencies have a very severe side effects. They can range from headaches, nausea, the feeling of being watched, like you get the creeps, your hair stands in the back of your head. They also can cause hallucinations in some severe high cases. Now, everything that has power to it, every electronic, has an EMF field. The standard field in any home is usually 0.1 to 0.2. Now, in some cases, about 3 cases ago, we did an investigation where we found an alarm clock that was emitting an EMF field of 500. And this lady was complaining of hallucinations, the feelings of being watched, headaches, nausea. She had to be hospitalized. It got to the point where it got so bad for her. So what we did was simply said, get rid of your alarm clock, go get a different one. Walmart's $20, you're good to go. Yeah. It's still on there.
You're using it for yours?
No, go ahead. All right. Now, one of the 3 types of hauntings that I'm going to talk about is there's a residual haunting, which is like a record stuck on the same thing, keeps repeating itself. It's not an actual entity or a demon. It's just an energetic blueprint into the environment. Now, emotions are very powerful things. When we are very happy or very angry, we run emotionally high. Now, when that emotion is with us, it can imprint the environment that's around us. So a lot of cases where we'll get reports of a figure just walking through a wall, not making any type of contact or saying, hey, I'm here, I want some attention. That would be a type of residual haunting. And the only way to deal with that is to let it fade. Because without any extra energy being put into it, it eventually will just fade away on its own. Now, the next type of haunting is an intelligent haunting, which the spirit or entity is going to interact with you. It's going to let you know that it's there, it's going to want something from you, most likely just recognition that it's there. When we go into a case and they're telling us that there's things that are being moved and hear voices, hear footsteps, one of the things that we immediately try to look for is any type of physical or mundane explanation to explain the activity. 2 cases ago, we had a lady that came to us said that her faucet kept turning on and off by itself. She couldn't figure it out. It was really bothering her. And we were able to help discover, with the help of a plumber, that there was back pressure in her lines that actually turned her water on and off for her. And that can happen. We tested it. We backed up the pipes with pressure, and they turned on. And once that pressure was let go, they shut themselves off. We'll answer any questions here in a little bit. Now, the next type after residual haunting would be a negative or demonic haunting. In this case, the entity is harassing or even physically harming a person for sheer pleasure, to get back at them. They feel they're wronged. A negative type haunting or demonic type is very, very rare. I've been investigating the paranormal for 16 years. Although the team that I've founded is only 5 years old. I've done this many years by myself. But when you encounter negative type hauntings, the first thing that I immediately take into account is the severity of the case. If they're saying, oh, there's children here, we're being scratched, we're being hit, things that are being thrown at us, we try to move that case a lot faster, because there's 3 things that we have to do before we come in to investigate a home. We have to have the client consent, we have to do our preliminary research, find out if there's anything that could be possibly explain the paranormal activity that they're experiencing. And the third and lastly is we have to make sure we're well protected. As you can see, we all wear our medicine bags, as well as say a prayer before each and every investigation, and as well as one afterwards. Then when we go through an investigation after the case is completed, after we're done investigating, gathering all our data, we'll walk around, we will bless every room with holy water and salt, as well as sage the room. We will also offer prayers to Archangel Michael, Gabriel, and Uriel, and ask them for their guidance and assistance in removing the entity from the home. Now, the last case that we did that we asked to do a blessing at worked well. A lady came to us and told us that there was voices. Her children was hearing voices. Her oldest son was being scratched. And after our investigation and after our blessing, everything was fine. She hasn't reported no more activity. The kind of funny thing with that case was that she reported that her youngest daughter was hearing a lady singing to her in German. And so we looked up what she recorded, because she actually recorded this for us. And it was a German lullaby that she was being heard. That was one of her most interesting types of phenomena. Now, with voice recorders and EMFs, there's lots of other technology that we use. We use infrared imaging, night vision cameras, DVR, digital video recorders, as well as called a Frank's box, or telephone to the dead. So what it is, it's a radio that tunes to the FM and AM frequencies, scanning for white noise, like the static you hear on TV that's out. And there's a belief among the field of the paranormal that this white noise will allow spirits to communicate with us in real time. So we can, like we're standing here talking to each other, we can have a conversation with a spirit like that. Then we also have what's called, go to the next one, a sofa foam. And what this does is it measures the vibrations in floors. A lot of people, one of the main claims we hear is people claiming they hear footsteps going up and downstairs, upstairs. And this will measure how much vibration there is and how heavy that vibration is. To judge, there's a big difference between a footstep of a cat and a footstep of a person. Don't worry about it. All right, cool. This clip right here is from a place called Prospect Place in Trenway, Ohio. There's a lot of well-known information up there. It was an old plantation at one point in time, and if we can ever get that to work right, we will show you the clip of what we got. It is an apparition of what looks like a little boy. Rhonda was up there taking pictures, and you see her go down the stairs. You see this little boy materialize in front of our cameras and run into the wall and disappear. One of the best pieces we've ever caught. It's very cool. Click on it.
There it is. It's green.
You're not going to be able to see it with this light.
You see how dark it is? It'll be too far.
Okay, wasting too much time. Don't worry about it. All right, sorry about that. If you guys want to see the clip, you can go to our website, which is aparanormal.com. It's up there. Or find us on Facebook, APRT Perry. And if anyone wants, after we get done here, we'll have business cards with our address, web address on there. We'll answer any questions you'd like. All right. Now, with the different types of equipment, a lot of the stuff that we use, we make ourselves. Night vision can get very costly. So, when we make our own equipment, we use pretty much anything we can. To make a Frank's box, for example, all you need is a radio that has a tuner in it that will tune the frequencies of AM and FM and scan. So what you do, you take that tuner out. That's it. You made a Frank's box. It's that simple. Because what that tuner does is it stops the radio when you tune to its channel. It stops it on that channel, the first channel that it can get to listen to clearly. And when we take that tuner out, it'll continuously scan the channel, and we'll get that white noise, and we can get responses through that white noise. And there's a lot of debate, even among the paranormal community, about these boxes, of whether or not you're just tuning into another channel that you're just skipping real quick. I can tell you, the last case that we we use this on, we were talking about having an entity harming a child. And I said out loud, I said, if there's an entity here harming a child, why are you doing it? And we heard a very clear response through the voice box, or through Frank's box, because I can. That was it. Simple, just because I can. Now, we didn't like that. It was what we did after that. We thoroughly blessed and cleansed the house. And as I said, they had no more activity. Now, getting back to the 3 main types of hauntings, there is one other type of haunting that most people don't know or constitute as a type of haunting. It's called poltergeist activity, or noisy ghost, is a German word for noisy ghost. And as what that correlates to is, as an adolescent, especially you see this in females, there's so much energy, so much change going on that it bursts out of them. It just, like a bomb, it just explodes out of them, causing all this chaotic energy to go out into the environment and can cause different things to happen. Furniture can be stacked and piled in a room in a geometric shape. Doors and windows and lights and that can go on and off by themselves, as well as people being picked up and thrown up against a wall. Now, to date, there is only one known case of any type of spirit actually killing someone. Has anybody ever seen the movie American Haunting? That case is based on the only known reported case from the 1880s where a spirit is reported to kill John Bell. And that is the only known reported case of a person dying from a spirit activity. All right. Next, I'm going to hand you off to Tiffany, and she's going to talk about research. Thank you very much.
I almost got the PowerPoint working. I'm Tiffany. I'm the case manager. I am a glorified secretary. I keep track of all of our dates for everything, everyone's phone numbers, how to get a hold of them. It's a lot of work. I have 3 filing cabinets loaded full of papers, which doesn't sound like a lot for most people until you actually have to find all the information. The best thing you can do is actually be very kind to your public records officials. They will do half the work for you. And that is so important because they know where everything is. The main thing I have to start with is finding out any history of the house that's known, including who had the deeds, who lived there, how they died. Because if they died in that home, that information is public knowledge and I can get it for free. But I need those public record people to get it. The most important thing about having all that information is if you use a medium like our team does, when I tell a medium, you know, we're going somewhere, I need you to concentrate on it. Like I'll say to Mike, hey, we got a case. Go take a couple minutes to go meditate. He goes, okay. Comes back and he'll be like, picking up on a little girl. She's about maybe 9 years old. And she's really uncomfortable. I'll be like, how long ago does it feel like? Well, she seems like she's dressed in really old clothes. I'll be like, okay. So I'll look up there and see, okay, is there anybody who had children who died in the home? Because that will be in those records. It makes it so I can prove if Mike's being valid or if he's just making things up as we go. A lot of the TV shows will not use mediums because there's not a real way for them to prove in an hour-long episode, hey, they're being accurate. A lot of my research, I also go to many haunted location sites. The best one I have found out there is actually theshadowlands.net. They actually warn you about trespassing, which is a very big no-no. You know, yes, it's cool to go out to Athens and get into the ridge, but you better have permission because you can get arrested. It is against the law. They also will tell you if a place no longer exists, if a place has been condemned, if they've tore it down, or if there's going to be security out there that will take you to jail. So they're very helpful. We actually went out to Carlisle after this myth of a demon tree that is supposed to actually continue to grow even though it's dead, and it leaks blood. And we're like, huh. And everybody who reported on it online said, park at the apartments across the street. We said, okay, that seems not so bad. Parked at the apartments across the street, asked one of the locals, we said, hey, we're looking for the demon tree. He goes, you don't want to go there and you want to get in your car and get out because we have a whole bunch of heroin addicts and we've had a couple murders, so you need to get out of town. And we said, all right, fair enough. He goes, actually, I've talked to the owner, and he prefers you guys don't bother him either, because they want him to cut that tree down because of all you people. We said, fair enough. And I contacted Shadowland and said, hey, the guy doesn't want us out on his property. It's private property. They yanked it right off their website. I was like, cool. They followed through. And that's one of our big things with working with other paranormal groups. We don't want there to be drama in the paranormal community. You'll have a lot of teams that will say, oh, well, I don't like them because of this, or I don't like them because of that. We're all really one group. Most people don't really like us much, or they love us. You'll have, for instance, I have a lot of friends who say, are you crazy? You shouldn't be chasing after those dead people because they're not God's people. And I'm like, angels are from God, and they're okay, and they might be who I'm chasing after, so leave me alone, you know. But it's all a perspective of who likes you and who doesn't. And so going back to research, as boring as research is, big thing is I love history, so it's fun for me to look up all the information. We have a guy who helps me sometimes. He's big on architect. He'll go and try to find the blueprints for me. When he can find them, it's a godsend, because then I can see where things have been remodeled, where there might have been a doorway that wasn't there before, or maybe there's a spot on the floor that we need to watch out for because it's original from when the house was built in the 1700s, where everything else has been remodeled. So that helps me a lot, because then I can say, hey Rhonda, before you go in that room, watch out, because the floor is going to be soft over there, and you're wandering around in the dark. Because with our cameras, we don't want a lot of light because it interferes with glare and everything else. I don't know if I can get it on here or not. This is a really cool place. This is a church out in Eastgate, out at Eastgate Fork. It's a really old church. This is where the very first sermon in Ohio took place. And when we were actually trying to get into a certain location, a very important historical building reservation area, we found out the home out there was owned by a family. And when the lady said the name, I said, really? I know that lady. So I went and talked to her, and she goes, yeah. Well, we were in the process of researching this as well, and I realized there was a whole family with her last name. And I said, do you know anything about that church? She goes, well, yeah, my whole family's buried out there. I said, okay, cool. You know, so it linked to the local area, and I found out, you know, her whole family's been living in Ohio for over 200 years. This church was exciting because they're actually in the model of trying to fix it. No, that's going to be on Rhonda's stuff. But that church, we got some interesting pictures where, I don't think you've put them on the site yet, have you? On the site when he gets them up there. It takes a long time. We actually have what looks like an old man climbing out of one of the graves, and he's in gold light. And he's got the crooked bent over back, and he's just climbing. We also have one that over a family's name is an arrowhead. And I was like, that's really neat. It's just neat little things. We have a video of a weird green flashing light, which is just, it's not like a regular camera flash. So it's like, well, what could it be? We couldn't figure it out. So we were like, hey, maybe it is evidence. When I do client interviews, there's some important questions I have to ask them. And one of them is actually what medications they're on. And that makes some people very uncomfortable, because they're like, well, I really don't want to tell you. And it's like, it's okay, it's just between me and you. And it's because of the history between some medications. Some can cause you to have sleep paralysis. So when you're sleeping, you think you're being attacked. But it's really, your body is just still in that paralysis mode. And even though you're awake, you can't do anything about it. You can have sleepwalking. Suicidal thoughts. Some people will think they're possessed because they're suicidal at the time. That can be from your antidepressants. It's terrible. Medication's terrible. Hey, you're depressed. Let's give you an antidepressant that will make you want to kill yourself. Yeah, but I have to ask them that. I have to ask them who's in the house that's experienced the type of things they've experienced. Then I have to ask, hey, is it okay if I ask your 5-year-old some questions too? Some people don't want you to talk to their kids about it because they want to make it go away. That's the boogeyman. Sometimes they're like, yeah, talk to the kids, and the kids will tell you things the parents never even thought happened. Like about an old man they saw walk into their room when they were being babysat. And they'll be like, he was green. They're like, green? Really green? And the kid will be like, yeah, he was green and he was old. And he said, hey, how are you? And I said, hi, how are you? And he left. You're like, okay, well, I'm glad you're okay. Neighbors, sometimes you have to talk to neighbors. We did a place out in Price Hill. The lady wasn't very comfortable with her neighbors, and they weren't comfortable with her because they were all new. And the one neighbor who would talk to us mentioned, well, where her house was built used to be all owned by one person. I said, okay. We went down to downtown Cincinnati, looked up the records, and there it was. It all was owned by one person, and where they lived was actually barns and storage sheds. And where her house was the carriage station, and next door was the servant quarters. So the man she was telling us appeared right outside her front door made sense with the servant quarters. Fit the description of what a servant for her area would have been. The neighbor said, oh yeah, and I saw a horse and buggy right outside her door one day. I said, there's no way you saw a horse and buggy. Oh yeah, I did. I said, well, that makes sense with the carriage station. So it's interesting. It's fun to prove what Mike sees or anything like that. It's fun to talk to people. I like to talk to people. Interviews can be really fun. Sometimes they're only 15 minutes long, and that can be just enough. And sometimes I'll sit there and take 5 hours worth of information because they'll have another common question is, do you have any occult material in your house? And they'll say, well, what's occult? Anything from Harry Potter books to a Ouija board, anything. And they'll go, well, okay, we own, Harry Potter, and we have this, and we have the Ouija board, and oh, the kids play all those video games, the ones with the dragons. Oh, yeah, those got to go in there too. Oh, we love Aragon. We have Aragon. It's like, well, that's all involving magic and occult, and that can also sway what people believe. So that's it's interesting. I think that's about it on me. It's your turn. Rhonda, my dear. Rhonda's going to talk to you guys about evidence and investigations.
Okay, when we're doing, I'll go ahead and start with the evidence review. When we're going through evidence review, a lot of times you don't get anything to even start reviewing when you first even start getting up to investigate. A lot of times it takes a while. You don't see any of this on TV, but it takes a while to set up all the equipment and figure out in special rooms where you're going to put the cameras and find out where all the a lot of the paranormal experience is going on. If a lot of it's going on in one room, which specific part of the room you're going to put a camera so you can catch what's going on and what's happening. With the when we're going through with evidence review, I mean, you could have sat in one spot for, say, an hour or two people together, and not got a thing to show for it, or thought you didn't get anything at the time, even though you've been taking pictures, or had with you a voice recorder, which we like to use to try and catch any EVPs, and they are very sensitive. So a lot of times we try to talk in just a normal talking voice, because if you talk too loud or too low, we could never really distinguish what's going on with where it's coming from. But you could be sitting there and not get anything, and then say, okay, well, to us, this is kind of a dud. We're gonna, radio back to your team members. We're gonna move on to another area. Well, in the course of that night, another team will come in and start doing an investigation as well. Now, they could get entirely different information. Everybody on the team has different abilities. Just because one team may get something at one point in time doesn't necessarily mean the other team is going to get the same thing. You could get totally different reactions depending on the team members you've got together. Some people may have more developed abilities than another team member may have, or a team member may not think they have any abilities whatsoever, and they're, just trying to see if they can see anything. So what the first team didn't get, you may get either an EVP, or as you're sitting there taking pictures, you could get what, and I'm kind of going to do the evidence review and types of evidence together, because you could be looking at the photos and get what is called an orb. Now, orbs are not necessarily considered to be proof of anything paranormal going on. And hopefully we're going to get a picture. Okay, right there at the top, now that's a rod. It's the same thing as an orb, but it's in rod shape instead of a round ball shape. And then we've got all those to the other side. Do we have a round one on there?
Yeah, it's in Barb's picture.
Okay, there's one here at the bottom, right there. That's a round orb. Now, people will argue it could be either a spirit trying to materialize, it could be dust, it could be snow, it could be an insect, it could be where you've stirred up whatever in that room. Well, we could do that. We'll answer that at the end. Me personally, depending on the size of it, now this is just my personal experience, I have a tendency to think that something is going on. What exactly, I don't know, but that something is going on. Something's happening. Well, sometimes you have mist that'll cover up half of the picture. You'll also have dark shadows that may be in the shape of a person, or it just may be part of the picture is dark and the rest of it's light. And a lot of times we like to take two pictures of the same area so you can see a contrast. If it was there the first time and not the second time, then there's a possibility of something going on. If it was there both times, it's kind of questionable. So there's just a lot of different evidence that we go through to try and figure out whether it's abnormal or whether it's just normal. A lot of times we go into it with the fact that we're not going to find anything and try to discount whatever, so we reset our brains so we don't think we're seeing something that we're not seeing. And then when you're going through the evidence, you could sit there and
It's too dark.
okay, you could sit there and listen to hours of evidence, like an EVP, like on the voice recorder. You could listen to hours and not get anything, and then all of a sudden there's this little bleep of something. Well, you never, 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 never want to enhance or alter any of your evidence in any way, because then people can say that it's not true and that it was all just made up. So if you need to enhance anything or double check it, then what you do is you make a copy of it so you can investigate it a little bit further and see whether there was actually anything paranormal going on, or if it was just something that can be explained. Evidence review could be fun though. We have found lots of weird things on evidence review, like flashes of light coming off of one side. And we were walking at a cemetery one night, just an example of we actually caught something first time we went in to the cemetery. At the time, we didn't know we caught anything because we had been walking around investigating, taking pictures, and kind of getting pictures of orbs and that. When we came back to the review that EVP, then we had found out that as we had walked into the cemetery, we'd only been in maybe a couple feet. When we listened to our voice recorder on the evidence review, we had gotten a voice that said, "Tell them our secret." But until we did the evidence review, nobody had even heard that. So it's just amazing, like I said, sometimes depending on who's doing what and where you're sitting and what's going on, you may or may not get anything. So far, we haven't had where we have got nothing to show for, a night out. We've gotten something, even if it's orb activity or, or whatever. So we've not actually gotten absolutely nothing. That being said, you've got your safety issues. You never, never, never want to go exploring by yourself. You always want to make sure that you have somebody with you. For the simple reason that if somebody gets hurt, one of the team members, we always carry walkie-talkies. Somebody on the team always has a walkie-talkie because we'll all split up. So you always want to make sure that you radio back to the other team members that if someone's hurt, so-and-so's been hurt, I'm gonna stay here with them so, nothing happens, make sure they're okay. And then all the other team members can come, whoever's close and help out. The other reason you don't want to do anything on your own is because it also gives you credibility to your evidence. There's somebody else there saying that, yes, this did happen. They did not enhance this. This is what actually happened. So it leads credibility to all of that. You also want to make sure your equipment is all in good working order. Batteries, if you need batteries, you want to have extra with you. You always want to carry a flashlight and have a backup flashlight. Now, a lot of this is done in darkness, but the flashlight is there just in case you have to see something or you're unsure of where you're at in an area. And you should always be aware of your surroundings. The excuse for being injured, I didn't see that, is a no-no. You should always be aware of your surroundings, where you're walking, and what you're doing. So that's another reason, like for the flashlight, if you're unsure, you can take it out, flash it quick enough, and then find your way, and then turn it back off. A lot of it's done in the dark. So a lot of times, like on TV, all we can look through and see is the camera and the light from the camera. I think that's it.
All right. This video clip here is from Old Bethel Church, the church that had the first Presbyterian lecture. Yes. And this is out at actually East Fork Lake, or East Fork State Park. That green glows we are unable to account for. We have a camera set up top up aloft, and it's shining as it's filming down. We see this flash that kind of looks like it builds and then flashes. We have nothing that color that we use, nothing whatsoever. The only thing that we can account is right outside, right over to here that you can't see in here because it's too dark, is there is a window, and we were outside taking pictures at that time, but the flash of the camera was white, not green.
And the shutters were closed.
Correct. Now, does anybody have any questions? You asked what our stance on orbs were.
Yeah, so you guys said like this or that, but I kind of want to ask, why
Well, there's lots of different things you can do, actually. First of all, the most important thing to remember when dealing with spirits is they have no physical form to them anymore. They are not the boss, you are. If you feel that you have a spirit in your presence or in your home or business, be firm and tell them, leave, get out. I don't want you here. You are not welcome. You can say a simple prayer like Archangel Michael, I ask for your divine guidance and help me. Now, any angels, they exist. It is my firm belief that they exist, but they can't intervene in our lives without our permission. Otherwise, it'd go against free will. Or you could use sage, salt. Any of those would work. Yes, sir.
I was wondering if you ever heard of a certain type of experience. I personally had an experience where I'm having negative dreams, impressions, ever since I moved into this particular house I'm living in. And it's been going on for over a year. And it's almost nightly, like it's as if they know when I'm going to wake up and actually project something into my mind. Have you ever heard of anything like that? I've never heard of an experience of that happening to anyone, so I'm just wondering.
I've never heard of anything like that exactly, but I have heard similar things to it, where a lot of it's called sleep paralysis, which is where you're not actually asleep. You are, but you're still consciously awake enough to realize your surrounding area. But with that particular, what you're describing, I've never really heard anything about that. But my advice to help you deal with that would be to definitely take some just regular old table salt, because table salt is basically just ground quartz crystal. Sprinkle a little bit around your bed before you go to sleep. Say a prayer to Archangel Michael or whatever you would feel comfortable to, and even sage, some desert sage. Any other questions?
I have one more question. So I used to think I had like a spirit in my dwelling. I had a neighbor who had since a child, like, something like a clairvoyant, who was able to be like a medium, and used to scare him, like he was able to help me communicate with what he perceived as a child and an old woman. He told me anyhow. And I found that I would start traveling, and even when I was alone and he was quiet, I could hear that, the same amongst cats. Mostly night, stuff that I would hear at the house where I thought that's where all this happened. So obviously, how many just like shooting hits are there? I don't know, that's not nice things you
Well, there's lots of different types of communication. Actually, the movement of spiritualism first began with the Fox sisters back in the 1800s, where in their home they would hear taps. And they started asking questions, and the taps would respond in yes or no fashion to them.
my 8-ball. Like, 8-balls actually work sometimes. Like, I feel like it does give me responses every now and then. It's weird.
Well, 8-ball,
Have fun with that?
they can give you responses, but as to their accuracy, that would be another matter.
That would be spirit.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'll get out of your hair now.
No, you're fine, huh? You're fine. Yes.
Like, give a case history. Tell them about one of your most exciting cases that you work on, like the magic case or something.
Actually, one of the most exciting cases we've ever done was for a friend of ours that we work with. Her and her husband, well, fiance at the time, were just separating from their other spouses, getting their whole life rearranged after having it torn apart. And they're saying that they're experiencing some almost violent activity. Their clothes were being thrown out of their bedrooms, the kids were being scratched, and they were constantly being woken up in the middle of the night. They couldn't sleep. And, you know, people that don't get sleep, they can be really cranky. So we went in there with me, Tiffany, and our old medium on the team, the other one, and we deduced that it was actually her grandmother. The other medium was able to pick up on her specific features, and she kept showing us a brooch. And he said, "There's something about a brooch. There's some piece of jewelry that your grandmother's just driving us crazy about. What is it?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, she gave me this necklace when I was a really little girl. I loved it, and I just forgot about it. I haven't taken it out for years." So like, well, take it out, you know, get it cleaned up, put it on, wear it a little bit. She did that, and everything stopped. The next day, everything stopped. They have reported no more activity for it. And that is one of our favorite cases, because it wasn't a really benign nature. It wasn't anything evil. It was just something that, hey, they wanted to say, hey, I want you to remember me. I want you to remember how much I loved you, especially in your time of need. And that was really cool for us to be able to help them with that.
And I had no research on that grandmother whatsoever because I didn't think, oh, the person could be haunted. I should look up her family. So I knew about the kid who drowned in the swimming pool and the kid who got hit in the parking lot. That was it.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, you said the children were being scratched though.
Yes.
Why would the grandmother be scratching her own great-grandchildren?
With that, it's what it wasn't a scratch, it was a handprint. Because when we went there to start the investigation, we asked them if we could see it. And what they thought was a scratch was actually really how, when you hold your hand real close, you'll get the red, and that's what it was. It was just a handprint, not a scratch.
Okay.
Any other questions? No?
Where can I find
I can't hear you. You gotta speak up a little bit.
the medium? That's the only reason.
There's about 20 million of them right downstairs.
I feel like I think too loud and you're like, shut up.
Well, if you're that, you could always walk around to a couple people that you feel comfortable or drawn to, grab a couple of their cars, give them a call, or shoot them an email. And that'd be a more private, one-on-one type situation for you. All right. Anybody else have anything?
One more question. How did you put your team together? How did you all come together to do this?
Well, basically, I walked into a body of light that used to be up in Mason that's no longer there, where I taught meditation as well as did psychic readings. And I said, guys, I'm stopping this. I'm going to start a paranormal team. Know anybody that wants to join? They're like, yeah, we do. And that was where I met one of the other mediums, Larry. And then from then, as I'm also a web developer, once I developed our website, we have a form on there for anybody that wants to join. And actually, as of yesterday, we have 8 people to interview for next.
And you're in Cincinnati?
Yes, ma'am. Cincinnati, well, Blanchester, we just moved, but we were based out of that area. We've traveled up to Michigan, Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, Florida.
I'm from California.
Yeah. Where there's no place that we won't go. If we can get there, as long as we can get there safely and get permission to get into what we want to investigate, we'll go there.
Do you charge for your investigations?
No, ma'am. And the only thing that we do charge for is there any documented evidence, any of the pictures, voice phenomena, or video that we have, as well as any of the research the TIFF finds. We put it all on a CD, and if they want the CD, we charge $15 for it. That's everything else is strictly done out of pocket for us. But we do accept donations to help with costs of offset expenses. Anybody else have any questions? No?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming. It was a
Picture.
great pleasure. Thanks.